Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show. This is Richard Doc Owen, and I am joined in the Hilltop Studios by...
I'm a Surefire.
And...
Uncle Bachi.
Got a full house ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Tonight's show is titled Life's Guidebook. And I'll tell you where the show title came from. Basically, we were out today running a few errands, and one of the things that I got was a flagpole for Memorial Day. We'll talk about that a little bit. And the clerk that checked us out was talking about the challenges that she was having with her back, and Alma had issues with hers because one of the things we bought was one of those little heat pad dealies, right?
Icy hot with the lidocaine.
There you go. So that kind of brought the conversation up and yada yada, and I jokingly said, and she said something about if I'd have known it was going to be this difficult, or
Nobody told her.
Nobody told her it was going to be that difficult, and so it made me think that. And I said to her, absolutely true. Our parents didn't tell us all of this, and we're not telling our kids. There's just certain things that you're going to have to learn on your own, right? So that made me, and I'll get into. I actually. In the time that we had that conversation at about 10 or 10:30 this morning, I came up with the answer to that question, and we will dive into it. And the other thing that I want to mention at the top of the show before we get into our self-advertising phase is a really good friend of the show. You have heard his music on the show when he was a part of a band called Madison Rising. As a matter of fact, we met Dave when we brought Madison Rising to town as a part of an event a couple of years ago that the Doc Owen Show sponsored it was called Catch the Spark.
And it was on this date, wasn't it?
It was it was in May.
Yeah.
It was May the 2th.
And it
May
was
the Tooth, right?
2015.
And it was 3 years ago.
I say
Man, how time flies.
it was the year before I got my master's degree.
Okay. So
Wow.
May the 15th, May the 2th, 2015, we had a thing called Catch the Spark, which was a really cool concert. And we brought Madison Rising in to be the lead band on it. And Dave was the singer for them since he's gone off on his own. And I need to tell you, loud and clear, Mr. Bray has regrouped fantastically. He out. He got an album out there. His first single release, his first release of it. They still call them albums, although it's a CD, and it's available on iTunes and everywhere else. The name of it is Music on a Mission, which was always Dave's theme. If you've ever listened to Madison Rising here on the show, you know that they are a very, God, country, and patriotism band, or they were at that time. And it's changed a little bit. But anyway, Dave has gone off and he did this thing called Music on a Mission. You can look him up at DaveBrayUSA.com. All right? There are those of us who have continued to follow Dave as he went off on his own and helped support this new album venture. And I'd like for you to know very, very proudly of Dave, his new album, first time single album, debuted on iTunes at number 6. We were shooting to get it in the top 10, and it came out at number 6.
That's pretty good.
On the first day of its release, which
That's fantastic.
He actually released his new album on May the 22nd.
22.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's all about God, country, and patriotism. We will play a track or two for you next week. It just came out, and my fumble fingers, I couldn't figure out how to download it off iTunes, but I'm sure Ima will come up with it for next week. We'll figure out how to do it. So you're listening to the Doc Owen Show. We are all over social media, DOCOWENSHOW. Best place to find us and follow us is on Twitter, because that's where you'll get instant notice, etc. We have a blog, docowenshow.com, which is the repository for Uncle Bocce's historical research, some of which you hear, but due to limited airtime, plus the fact the way research works, you do a whole lot more research than you actually have time to put on the air.
That's right.
And so he keeps it all out there available to you. And all of our shows are available to you on free apps for either the Android or the iPhone devices. So you can go to your particular store, your iTunes store, or your PlayStation or what's it called on
Play Store.
Play Store on Android, and look for Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW. Download the app, get with us, and spread the word to your friends. We would greatly appreciate it. That's probably all the advertising you're going to hear. From that point forward, we launched the show into a very traditional sort of a segmented manner. The first of which is Ima brings us an inspirational quote. Uncle Bocce gives us a little bit about this day in history, and then I finish it off with something generally about leadership, but it's been taking a different tone, and you'll hear that when I go down it tonight. So, Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote, as usual, comes from passiton.com. So I'm passing it on to y'all.
Perfecto mundo.
Yes. And tonight's quote comes from a gentleman. I hadn't heard of him. He's still around. His name is Terry Orlick.
Terry Orlick.
And he's a gymnast, and now he's turned author as well.
Okay.
Yep. And his quote is, "The heart of human excellence often begins to beat when you discover a pursuit that gives you a sense of meaning, joy, or passion."
Yeah. I'll bear witness to that.
Good.
Good job. Uncle Bocce,
Yeah.
what happened in your world a couple of hundred years ago?
Well, I've got two things. In 1775,
How did I know?
okay, a gentleman by the name of John Hancock. Give me
Absolutely.
liberty or give me death.
Or give me insurance.
Give me insurance, right?
John
Well,
Hancock insurance.
I know. I thought he signed everything in the world. Because every time back when we used to use checks, they'd say, "Give me your John Hancock."
John Hancock, right, okay. So he becomes president of the Congress.
Okay.
And because
President
of that,
of the Congress.
yeah, the
That sounds a little strange. The Continental Congress.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. Yes, and president of the Second Continental, Congress to be sure. And because of that, he was privileged to be the first one to sign. So he signed right in the middle on the back in very large letters.
Huge.
Yeah.
The guy must have had really bad eyesight.
Well, it was because he didn't want the British to make an excuse that he couldn't read it without their spectacles.
So there was a reason.
There was a reason, yeah.
Large font.
Yeah. And the second thing is on this day in 1883, that bridge that everybody tries to sell you,
New York Bridge. The, what?
Brooklyn Bridge,
was finished.
it opened, yeah. It opened on this day in 1883. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
What did they do? Walk goats across it? Did they have cars?
Oh, in 1883?
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Well, they started having cars, but
They had
the
horses
bridge,
for sure.
the bridge was built for trains and for pedestrians.
Made you think, didn't it?
Yeah, you did. I wonder when they did introduce vehicles on it. I didn't even think of that. It would take you to do that. Okay, so anyway.
Good job. 1775, 1883. That's it? All on May the 23rd.
24th.
Oh,
Yeah.
Actually,
In
today.
fact, today is the 24th. Mom in heaven, happy birthday.
Oh.
My mother's birthday
Oh,
Good
that's
for you,
sweet.
lad.
on May
I like that.
24th.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Went all the way through dinner. You never said a word. Good job. Guess we should tell them, right? Free dinner.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Got to
Well,
keep that jab
it's free
going.
for some of us,
There
right?
you go. So lately I've been quoting out of a book given to me by a close friend. Thank you, G. It's a New York Times bestseller called God Bless America, Prayers and Reflections for Our Country. So I just sort of flipped open to the very first statement, and it is, and I felt like I better read it, a prayer for the country. All right? Almighty God, you have given us this great land as our heritage. We humbly pray that we may always remember your generosity and faithfully do your will. Bless our land with honest industry, truthful education, and an honorable way of life. Defend our liberties and strengthen the resolve of the people who have come from throughout the world to make America their home. Lead us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. Help us to appreciate the opportunities that are ours as we struggle to bring harmony to an unsettled world. May we balance our concern for justice with a willingness to display merit, and may our concern for security be tempered with a willingness to take risks which will provide worthwhile change for the good of all people. Lord, we pray for your guidance as we work together for the best interest of our communities, our nation, our world, and the ultimate goal of peace. When times are prosperous, let our hearts be thankful, and be troubled times may deepest trust in you. Amen. Now that is straight out of the Chaplain's Service Book of Prayers. If you're not familiar, if our young audience is not familiar, a chaplain is the pastor of the flock in the military.
Right.
No matter what branch of the military you're in, and no matter where you're assigned, how big a unit or small unit, there's always a chaplain on board in service, right? And they're all called chaplains, and it is a very non-denominational environment. That's the only way to say it. That's why they're not called priests or pastors or whatever the various sect might call the leaders of their church. In the military, they're called a chaplain. So that's straight out of the Chaplain's Book of Prayers. The other thing I want to mention out of this book that I find very interesting, and I think Uncle Bocce will too in particular, the first Thursday in May is National Prayer Day.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We didn't make a big deal out of it on the show. Probably my bad, since my name's on the door. It is my bad. I just skipped over it. So I'll make up for it right now. Here's what you need to know. These are the cliff notes. A foundation of prayer. The first day of prayer was declared by the Continental Congress in 1775. So that would be your friend John Adams. I mean, John
Patrick
Hancock.
Henry.
Well,
I-
yeah, John
One of the
Hancock.
Yes,
That you were
I'm
just
sorry.
talking about, 1775, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first day of prayer, that's when it was declared. Now listen to this. In 1952, both houses of Congress called upon the president to set aside a day each year as National Prayer Day. All right? Wasn't done. Wasn't done the first time. Wasn't done in 1952. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill marking the first Thursday of May a National Day of Prayer.
Good for you, Reagan.
1775 to 1988.
Wow.
Wow. 100 and what years? Some years.
Yeah, 113 years. To go from we need to do this to done.
Exactly.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And we complain because they don't get something done in 60 days.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, Chico.
The Congress still can't get anything done.
Well, that's probably what they said in 1952 when they couldn't get the National Day of Prayer. That's kind of my point. They still, but they are getting something done. They are inching, just little bitty increments at the time. And our job is to make sure that those are the predominant direction is the correct direction.
Right.
That we choose the right path, the difficult right path, as this opening passage said, and not the easy wrong one. Which means it's going to be a fight. Right?
Right.
Okay. Uncle Bocce?
Yes, sir.
What do you got, man? What do you got?
We're on number
talk
18.
Talk to me. What do you got?
A young man by the name of Ulysses S. Grant.
Yep.
Not his real name, but we'll get to that.
Grant?
No, Grant was his real name. Oh. Now, he is probably the young. Well, he was is amongst the youngest presidents that we've ever had. He was 46 when he took the oath. The only president I think that is younger than him was John Kennedy at 43.
Oh, wow.
I think that's So he was.
That's pretty young.
So Grant, having this fantastic military career. He went to West Point. His dad, did some things in the background to get him appointed, and he thought it was boring. He didn't like it, but he passed, and he eventually became a general, and he fought in the Civil War and brought the North to victory.
Right.
Okay. Now he did have a little bit of a reputation for corruption, but most of that came from his appointees than it did him personally. One of the good things that he did, he initiated true reforms that helped African Americans and Native Americans. So he was friendly in that kind of sense. Okay. He probably had the lowest IQ of all of our presidents, which is still good, 120. The simple local schools for him were just boring.
Question. Did I miss it? Democrat or Republican?
Well, I didn't get there yet, but he's a Republican.
Okay, go ahead.
He ran on the Republican ticket.
Right.
He had the choice, actually. He could have gone either way.
Okay.
Because he really wasn't political. Okay.
But he was a military man. They're not supposed to be political.
Right. Okay. So he didn't like his early school, and most of the children mistook that as quietness, his quietness for stupidity, and nicknamed him useless.
That's where
No, it's still coming.
Oh, yeah.
He entered the West Point, and he excelled in mathematics, writing, drawing, and horsemanship. He was an incredible equestrian. That's why he rode the horse in the army so well. And they recognized him. Now, to get down to the point here, his name. His real name, his birth name, was Hiram Ulysses Grant.
Right.
But when they signed him into West Point, they didn't know his real name.
Right.
They knew Ulysses, and they knew his last name was Grant. And they thought, well, we got to give him a middle name, so they gave him the S, which stands for his mother's side of the family, Simpson.
Okay.
So that's how we get Ulysses Simpson Grant.
Wow.
Okay? Just a fluke, a mistake, but still.
West Point doesn't make mistakes.
Okay. Some of the nicknames he had, he was called Unconditional Surrender Grant. He wasn't going to, accept anything other than unconditional surrender. And he did. And another nickname that he had was the Great Hammerer, but I couldn't find anything that really to expound on that. So,
okay.
He was from New York, although he was born in Ohio.
Right.
And he stayed in New York once he, West Point.
West Point.
Yeah, his party affiliation was Republican because the Republicans were the first that came to him and wanted to put him on the ticket as president.
Got it.
But, like I said, he could have been either way.
Right.
Okay? His age was 46. He was about 5'8", 135 pounds. Kind of a small guy. But when you look at his picture, you think he's a really big guy.
Well, it's because he's up on that horse.
Well, I guess.
Every time you see him, he's up on that horse.
It's the angle. How they have him in the angle. Yeah.
So he was born Methodist, but was not religious at all. He attended church services occasionally, as an adult, but primarily to please his wife, who was a little more religious. Her name was Julia. He died on July 23rd, 1885, in Mount Gregor, New York. He was buried in a temporary tomb in Riverside Park in New York City until they built his the General Grant National Memorial in Manhattan. And I've seen it. I've been there. It's beautiful. And it's right on the Hudson River.
I'm sure.
The back of it, yeah. So they gave him a monument. He was in office from March 4th, 1869 until March 4th, 1877. 8 years.
Full 2 terms.
He had full two. He was the
terms.
first
That's
one.
what I was going to say. He's the first one in a long time.
One that actually lived out 2 terms since Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, quite some time.
Right? Yeah, all those others were 1-termers.
Boom, boom, boom. Yep. Interesting.
Okay. His salary was $25,000 still.
Yep.
It's $690,000 today. However, during his first term, they raised it. Well, actually, in the second term, they raised it to $50,000. So he spent 4 years at 25 and 4 years at 50,000.
They like this guy.
Yeah. Okay,
He must have gotten a performance bonus.
He must have.
Yeah, incentive.
Yeah. The only
incentive pay.
Yeah, the only office that he held was the commanding general of the U.S. Army. He had no other prior political aspirations or involvement.
Dwight David Eisenhower.
Yeah. His wife's name was Julia Boggs Dent. They were married. Well, obviously, if it's his wife, they were married. Where am I going? They had 4 children.
Okay.
Fredericks Dent, Ulysses S. Jr., Ellen Renshaw Nellie Grant, and Jesse Root Grant. Some interesting names.
Very
Dent,
different.
Root,
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
E-I-O.
And she died in 1902. Now, he went through 2 campaigns. The first campaign was 1868. Okay, because they had thrown Johnson out. Nobody wanted anything to do with him. Now, like I said, he could have won the nomination from either party.
Right.
However, he latched himself on a group called the Radical Republicans. And there's also another group called the Liberal Republicans.
Right.
And next week, I will have something to tell you what the differences were of these different Republican factions. Okay. The Democrats, big mistake, they nominated New York Governor Horatio Seymour.
Okay.
Okay. And he ran on a platform calling for a repayment of the war debt in greenbacks. And that's another whole story about what greenbacks were. It was just government issued
funny money.
Yeah.
Monopoly money.
Right, exactly. The campaign was bitter, but Grant had the upper hand because he was a war hero.
Not only that, people with the last name Seymour should not run for office.
Yeah.
There's just too much fun.
The only Seymour I know is a walrus at SeaWorld.
There's another one I know, but I can't say it on the show.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking
There's
of.
too much fun that can be posted to Seymour.
Yeah, his opposition made a lot of accusations of him, including that he was a drunkard and a Negro lover and stuff like that. Which I don't think there's any evidence of it.
But racism was alive and well. The accusation of racism was alive and well.
Yeah, it just wasn't called that then, I don't think.
Right.
Okay.
It was called terms we don't use.
So against Horatio, who was the Democrat from New York, and Ulysses being also from New York. He won handily, or overwhelmingly, I say, as far as the electoral votes are concerned.
Right.
He got 214 out of 294. The other 80 went to Seymour.
Yeah.
The actual count, or the popular vote, was a little bit closer. It was about 300,000 votes difference. But nevertheless, he won.
Right.
Okay? Then the campaign of 1872, he again received the Republican nomination without any opposition.
Right.
His running mate was the outspoken radical Republican, Henry Wilson of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Like I said, next week we'll dig into what these
What
different
that means.
Republicans are. Yes. And then the liberal Republicans, growing ever more critical of Grant administration, they nominated, guess who, of all people, they nominated the editor of the New York Tribune, Horace Greeley.
Well, no, wait.
Another funny name.
I think you just said something. I think you
Did I say
either I
something wrong?
misunderstood.
Okay.
So, the Democrats, Horace Greeley was for the Democrats.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
However, he was supported by
Liberal
this group
Republicans.
called Liberal Republicans.
You did say that. See,
And, yeah,
so
and
I
they
didn't
put-
I didn't hear it
No.
wrong. Okay.
Yeah, I'll explain that.
Okay.
So,
So
the
there were
Democrat, yeah, go ahead.
So they were rhinos.
I guess you can say that.
They were what we call rhinos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party at this time was fractured to the extent their nomination, they picked Greeley
Right.
up and put him up as the Democrat that they wanted. Okay.
So much like today, they were in such bad shape that the Republicans, the liberal Republicans, aka rhinos, had to come to their rescue so it wouldn't be a one-party country.
There you go. Yeah. However, the way that this worked out, it wasn't so great. Grant won handily. Again, this time he got 286 electoral votes out of 352. Horace Greeley got 0 electoral votes.
Wow.
None whatsoever.
Zip,
Who
huh?
got the balance of the electoral?
Okay, I'm going to
mean,
tell you.
yeah,
There were 2 other Democrats that were running.
Oh.
Okay, B. Gratz Brown and Thomas Hendricks. Don't know anything about them.
I'd vote for Begratz just on his name.
B. These names are really incredible, aren't they?
What
He
was
only
Hank
got
thinking?
Mm.
18.
They're
And
almost,
Thomas-
they're almost as unpresidential as Trump.
Yeah. And his Thomas Hendricks got 42. So I mean, there was no question about this particular run. He definitely, and even the liberal Republicans, they actually put one guy up too, and he got 1 electoral vote. Period. That's it.
What a schmuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Voted for himself.
Right. As far as his cabinet is concerned, he still had the same cabinet members. He didn't add any or didn't. We haven't had any added since Andrew Jackson.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So it was pretty much the same. He did have a little bit of a problem with. He's not on here.
So they kept their overhead down.
The Secretary of War, because he didn't like the Secretary of War and he wanted him out, and everybody else said, you're not going to do that. But eventually he won. Okay.
Of course he did.
As far as court appointments, he in 8 years he nominated 46 judges to the federal courts. Wow. 8 of those were Supreme Court, but only 5 of those 8 were actually confirmed. And I have their names here, if anybody wants to know them. Nobody that I think I would recognize. So the Supreme Court, 8, only 5 confirmed, and the federal judges, 38, a total of 30, which that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
That is tremendously a lot. And
Yeah.
the list goes on and on and on.
Good for him.
Yeah. So, and basically, that leads us into next week.
Okay.
Okay,
Good
because
job.
next week we're going to look a little bit more of his, of his accomplishments, and look at what was going on in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party then.
Yeah,
so we'll do that next week.
I think we want to know, we be in the audience, because I'm part of your audience on all these history
Yeah,
things.
no, absolutely.
So I think what we want to know is this liberal versus radical. Is that
Right.
what they were called?
Yeah, liberal Republicans, radical Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds a little bit familiar.
Yep.
You know, sounds a lot familiar.
As much as things change, nothing ever changes.
That's
Isn't that right?
Part of the point. Absolutely on the point.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, for those of you, Uncle Bachi, thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Kabachi.
Good job.
Yes, Uncle Bachi at DocOwenShow.com.
Boom. Right now is when most shows run a commercial break. We're not going to do that. It ain't going to happen. But we are, for those of you that tuned in late, we are going to replay for you the introductory music for the Doc Owen Show.
Yay.
For your listening pleasure and for our sip of water, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Get on your dancing shoes.
There you go. Now, see, I'm all thrown off because I hear that song and I have something that always,
Yeah.
welcome back or welcome aboard.
That's
Yeah, exactly.
And it all goes together. The title of tonight's show is Life's Guidebook. And then it sort of says, say what? And if you listen to the first half of the show, or the very intro part, you'll understand where that came up. And it was folks talking about what information or what type of guidance we give to the next generation. And there's an awful lot of things that we don't do.
That's
As
true.
well as I realize, and you always hear this, for those of you in the audience who, anyway, one of the things that's always said is children do not come with a manual.
Oh, I was told that.
They don't, because every one of them is different.
That's right.
There's no way to create a manual for all the different little unique things that you're going to be challenged with when you have children, right?
Right.
Certainly anybody that thought they were going to hand out a manual to my mother on me, forget about it. Forget it. Oh, forget
They
about
give
it.
like a whole encyclopedia.
So, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized there is a manual. There is a there is a. It's not a manual, so to speak. A manual is very specific.
Yeah.
Like your computer manual or
tutorial.
it's a tutorial. Do this, this will happen, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So the difference is, and that's the reason I use the term guidebook, because that's what it is, it's just sort of a guide to life in general. And it just kind of jumped out at me that there is one.
Yep.
And it's probably based on a conversation that I had this morning. It's the Bible.
Amen.
Yep.
That's right.
But
knew
we
you were
don't
gonna
think
say
about
that.
that.
No, we don't.
We don't we don't think about it. At least I don't. And I should. But when that sort of thing comes up, and I have this may come as a surprise to some people, but I'm going to go ahead and share it on the air. I can be a bit of a smartass.
Oh no.
No.
I know. I keep it under wraps.
Gee.
Do a good job.
It comes out very rarely, but when it does, boom! I'm good. I'm really
Exactly.
good.
Exactly.
And that was one of them right there. But the way I have a tendency for whatever is to, and I think it's because of the political correctness required in today's world of not mentioning God, not being straightforward with your Christianity, not, I don't know why people get offended. They shouldn't. If they are, too bad.
Right.
But I have a tendency to be sort of a wiseacre when it comes to reminding people about passages that are in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? And growing up, our entire community was very involved in the church. I graduated with 76 other little boys and girls from high school. So it was a small community. Almost all of us went to one type of a church or another. And all of those churches were within a 6-block area. All the churches, 6 blocks square, so 36, you know what I'm saying? And everybody had their church, and then we'd all go to church with our parents. And then we'd all get together after church like a class, but it was a big deal. It was a really big deal.
Community.
A community, and part of your leadership was measured not just in school, but also at church. We grew up knowing what community leadership was. We don't have that today. We don't have any of that today. We have.
Wait a minute. We have community organizers. Where are you going with this? I'm sorry.
That's exactly. Prove my point.
I proved the point. Exactly.
And the point being, number one, the opposition is extremely good at taking our terminology and then defining it better than we do. If you think of a community organizer, that's exactly what you think of is the Barack Obama type people, right? And they are not community organizers; they are community dividers.
Yeah, they are.
They are the exact opposite of what they tell you they are. But you're right. I mean, they took the words and redefined it they remade it. But I don't, not only do I not see that happening today, I don't even see the opportunity to make that happen. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I mean, I know that there's a lot of involvement in the church by a considerable number of young people. It's not like young people don't go. And it's not like they're not involved.
Right. But what happens
Yep.
in churches, instead of having community organization, what they have is their own little community, and they do not participate with anyone else outside their church building. That is the problem. It just goes along with what you said. We don't have it today. That's one of the reasons why we don't have it.
See,
Oscar.
We got together as young people and talked about the differences of our churches. Joked a little bit about the differences of our churches, but it kept what we all stayed together, knowing what I grew up Methodist. Well, I knew what a Baptist was. I have friends who were Baptist. My best friend growing up was a Baptist. Went to the Baptist church. You know what I'm saying? But we got to know the variances of what we were being told, but we also got to know the similarities of what we were being taught. Like a military chaplain. I can go back and read this to you. You didn't hear Jesus mentioned. You didn't hear anything that was secular mentioned in that prayer. We're all in it together. And so all of that started this morning with a lady complaining about her back. Actually, I think it started before that. That's when the seed was put in there. And we need to figure, and then another part of the discussion was about the school shootings and what do we do about them. Okay. and the fact that more and more education, of which I am a part, is going online. It's coming out of the schoolroom. It's going via computer, remote.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to do anything at all to enhance the community that I was talking about.
That's right.
Unless you're unless you have a real dedicated and educated and capable guidance system to build that around. Your professors are the key players. Does that make sense? I'm not offering answers. I'm just kind of saying what went on in my
Yeah.
head today and in the past. I mean,
They're gonna lose the people skills too, like how to interact with each other, and they won't know what to do. They'll be like,
They
"Oh my
won't.
God, there's a human. What do I do? Oh my God, I better go hide."
and another part that went on today was a discussion about progress and the fact that something that I've been saying all of my adult life, and that is not all progress is good.
That's correct.
That's true.
But there are an awful lot of people who buy into progress just for progress' sake and don't think at all. You know, it's like,
Just get on the wagon and
well,
go.
yeah, I mean, we got to build this road, but sir, that there's a cliff up there. I don't care. We got to build this road. We're building this road, and this is where we're going. But sir, there's a cliff. You're building a road off a cliff. Well, I don't care. There's no road out there, and I want a road out there.
There you go.
Some people think a little further than
Yeah.
you know, and they can see how things connect, and maybe that's not exactly just because it's progress, just because we're building a road, doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right road
Or going in the right
or
direction.
going in the right direction, right? That's what in the opening prayer that I gave
Yeah.
from the chaplains, you know, the wisdom to do the difficult thing that is right as opposed to the easy thing that is wrong. So it was I guess what I'm relating to is sort of a strange day. I mean, even though there's all the typical political bull sugar is still going on.
Sure.
It's out there, but every once in a while, the Doc Owen show's just got to take a break from it.
Yeah.
I mean, and call on Life's Guidebook to say, what the? Because I can tell you right now, our city is turned upside down.
I am so disappointed.
And it's about to get worse.
No, I'm sure it is.
I mean, this is like something out of Uncle Bocce's history book, with all the pushback, and with all of the tyrannical. What's happening is we've got a city government that really, really has no interest in what the citizens say.
That's correct.
They are taking
No
the approach.
interest.
And I said this before the elections. I can go back to a show where I had a whole show on it, talking about the difference between a candidate and, you know, once these folks get elected, they think, okay, thanks, I got it. You elected me because I know what I'm doing. No, we elected you because you listen to what we tell you.
Yeah. Right.
But it goes to their head.
Yeah.
It goes to their head. So since we elected them, they're the smartest guy on the block. And that's what we have right now is a group that thinks, oh, well, they elected me, so I can do whatever I want until I'm out of office. Some of them may be leaving office sooner than they expected because there are other elected officials in town who are still listening to the public and representing the public, and we got a major fight going on.
Yes, we do.
And if you've ever heard the term that the closer to home, the nastier the politics, it's very true. If you think there's a fight going on in Washington, D.C., you hadn't seen anything till you've seen local politics
That's true.
trying to drain a local swamp,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So,
No question about that.
That's true.
am I on the right track? Are we
Yep.
leading the audience down the right track with it? I mean, you grew up, I'm motioning, both of y'all grew up pretty pretty well ensconced in the church, in some sort of a religious environment, right?
I even started in a private religious kindergarten.
Catholic,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How far did you go in Catholic school?
By my choice,
Yeah.
I went from kindergarten to 8th grade, but I got a scholarship to go on to a Catholic high school, but I chose not
Decline.
to.
You wanted to go mingle with the public.
I was like, I am done winning all these ribbons and trophies.
Right.
And the pressure, tremendous pressure.
Was it all girls?
No,
Okay, so it was co-ed.
yes,
Okay.
both.
All the way through. But it was just the pressure to excel.
But they find out, like, well, I don't mean to brag or nothing, but like I was number one in my class. There was like 2 classes all the time.
She's not bragging. When it's fact, it's not bragging. She's also a 4.0 student all the way through her bachelor's and master's.
Awesome.
Very bright lady.
I'm just
Okay.
too stubborn. But anyway, but yeah, once they find out like you're the one, they put all that pressure because they want to be represented in the community that we bring
So it's-
out the brightest and the best.
It's them competing with the other
I think
schools
so.
and
we-
using you.
as a pressure. And then we're paying them as a private school.
And you figured this out when you were how long old?
When I was going to go into high school, I said, I'm done.
14 or 15. About the same time I decided I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. Yeah, decisions come early. Decisions, life.
I was done.
Life decisions can come very early. We
And the earlier they come, the better person you will be.
say,
unless you catch up.
Where are you saying? Where
I
are you
said
coming from?
the earlier,
Give me your experience. Where are you coming from? Because you grew up that same way too.
basically, yes. Although I went to Catholic school all the way up to my second year in college.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But
I
think
was,
there's a difference for young men versus young ladies.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there is.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
In the Catholic schools, I think they're
Right.
treated differently. Go ahead.
But to tell my story, it
Yeah.
would take 5 shows. So I don't even have a short version. But anyway,
Brief version. I don't know how many times I got a brief version.
a brief version. Okay, long around when I was about 32, I think,
Okay.
I started seeing things that just didn't coincide with biblical thought, biblical teaching. It just did not
But
coincide.
you got that biblical teaching as a youngster.
Well, yes.
You were totally
the church, the
immersed in it.
religious part. Oh, absolutely. I wanted to be a priest and nothing else,
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, they get. And the
Well,
thing is,
that was the way to excel
yeah,
in an all Catholic school. Was
I played at the church
Especially-
band. I did that.
especially, yeah, especially when the church is an ethnic church, primarily, not all,
Okay.
but primarily. Our church, of course, was Italian. I mean,
think?
We had all
couldn't get
kinds.
more Italian than, and that was the Italian community.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that became part, not only of a culture,
So
but
you-
part of your life.
Well,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and you identify everything you identify with is contained in this
Right.
bubble,
Yeah.
sorta. Okay.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
So basically, I went searching for God and I found him.
Okay.
I found him.
Starting at 32.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not and
Well, actually, it was younger than that. I was younger than that. I can't remember
but you as a part of that research, as a part of that search, did you find that he was elsewhere besides the Catholic Church?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I did. I mean, hey, folks, nothing against Catholic Church. This is just my personal experience. May not have anything to do with your experience. So, yeah, so I'm sorry,
That's
people.
Uncle Bocce's priest.
Yeah, he's
He's
calling me. He
listening
didn't
to
like
the
it.
show.
He's
He's
listening.
gonna give you his 2 cents now. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's funny. But
So anyway, yeah.
so I keep trying. I keep going back. We need to make sure that we are clear and connected with a young audience. This whole thing called God and religion and the Bible, and you hear us talking about Christianity, you need to find your way in that community, in that world. And that's all. That's really all I would say. Find your own level of comfort with all of these concepts.
Yeah.
Right. And there's going to be some folks that are way out there in terms of biblical scholars, can quote you chapter and verse. You hear one on the show all the time, Nico LaHood.
Yeah.
All right. And there are plenty of others.
Yeah.
And then there are folks who turn it into music on a mission. Dave Bray, USA.
That's right.
That is the most integral part of his message. Okay? So somewhere, anywhere along a spectrum, even Uncle Bocce wanting to be a priest, but so anywhere in that spectrum, you need to find your own comfort zone, but make it a part of your life. Does that make sense?
Yes. It becomes, well, yeah.
I mean, and I told you how I grew up as a real youngster. And then then I went to the Naval Academy, and we had the chaplain, and, we had required Sunday services, et cetera, et cetera. But the older I got, and this is for the audience, the older I got, the more there were things that competed for my time. And there were more things that were more important, on weekends it didn't stay as a part of my day-to-day routine.
Right.
And that's a mistake. I'm here to tell you that's a mistake. You don't have to completely disconnect and quit going altogether, or quit being involved, or quit doing things that are might make others around you uncomfortable. Let's put it that way. But you need to be the one that goes to find your own comfort zone and hang out with that level of comfort, but be involved in some way with Life's Guidebook. Be involved in some way with, as Uncle Bocce put it, biblical teachings.
I could say one thing.
Yep.
To all you young millennials out there, regardless of what your attitude is towards religion, Bible, or anything, Quran, anything else, regardless of what it is, do not treat those scriptures as religious. Think of them in terms of Life's Guidebook.
That's what I'm saying.
Because the Ten Commandments, that was Jewish. But guess what?
Yeah.
That formed the basis of our morality.
That's right. And that's the reason I'm calling it a guidebook.
Good.
It's not a manual.
That's right.
It's not a do this, point A, point B. It's a guidebook.
That's right.
And we all have to find our own way through life, but this is the guidebook to that life, particularly, in the U.S. I mean, that's the best way you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And you're going to find others with the same level of interest in the guidebook. Right?
That's true.
All right. We're good?
We're
We
good.
are good.
Okay.
We are good.
How much time we got?
We're getting real close.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Come back
So-
to see us. Thank you very much. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.